Family dinners are where the masks we wear for the world sometimes slip. You notice things, a lingering glance, a trembling hand, the slight hesitation before someone speaks. That night, at my engagement dinner, I noticed everything. I'm Derek Anderson, 32, an architect who built my reputation designing sustainable luxury homes throughout New England. The kind of success story that looks perfect on paper. First-generation college graduate, self-made professional, engaged to a woman from one of Boston's oldest families. But success stories rarely reveal the whole truth. I watched my fiancée Claire slip white powder into my champagne while my own brother distracted the table with a toast. The powder dissolved instantly, leaving only the faintest film on the surface, invisible to anyone who wasn't paying attention. But I've always noticed things others miss. It's why I'm a successful architect. It's also why I discovered their affair 3 weeks ago. To Derek and Claire, my brother Kyle said, raising his glass with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "May your marriage be blessed with trust and fidelity." Trust, fidelity. The words hung in the air like smoke while I stared at the poisoned champagne in front of me. 3 weeks before our wedding. 6 months after I caught them whispering in my kitchen at 2 a.m. 2 minutes before whatever they'd slipped me was supposed to take effect. I still remember the day I introduced them, Claire's eyes lighting up as she shook Kyle's hand. "Your brother never told me how charming you are," she'd said, and I'd felt proud that the woman I loved was connecting with the little brother I'd practically raised after our parents' divorce. I'd paid for his college, given him a place to stay when he lost his job, defended him when others gave up on him. And Claire, I'd written her love poems, designed our dream house, planned a future where we'd grow old on a porch I'd sketched myself. I didn't panic. I didn't scream. I simply watched Claire's favorite cousin Jessica laugh at something my father said, her champagne identical to mine, placed just inches from my fingers. "Drink up, bro," Kyle urged, the slight tremor in his left hand betraying his nerves. "Special vintage." My future mother-in-law, Victoria, beamed from the head of the table in her Hamptons mansion, eyes darting between me and my glass. "Yes, Derek. Claire chose this champagne especially for tonight." I'm sure she did. I remembered finding Claire's earring in my brother's guest room 3 weeks ago. Remembered the deleted texts I'd recovered from Kyle's phone. Remembered how frantically Claire had suggested we needed a family dinner before the wedding. Everyone was watching me now. Even Dr. Wilson, the Prescott's dear family friend who happened to be an ER physician, conveniently seated across from me. I lifted my glass and nodded at Claire. "To us." Then, as Uncle Robert launched into a story about his golf game, I pretended to take a sip but didn't let the liquid touch my lips. I watched Claire's shoulders relax, saw her exchange a quick glance with Kyle. When Jessica turned to answer a question from Aunt Martha, I switched our glasses in one smooth motion. "More wine, Jessica?" I asked pleasantly, pushing my original glass now in front of her, slightly closer. "Always," she laughed, picking it up without a second thought and taking a deep swallow. 45 minutes later, Jessica slumped forward, her face crashing into her chocolate mousse. Dr. Wilson jumped up immediately. "She's having some kind of reaction." Claire turned ghost white. Kyle knocked over his water glass. My future mother-in-law grabbed her husband's arm so hard her knuckles turned white. And I just sat there, watching it all unfold, one thought crystal clear in my mind. They had tried to drug me at my own engagement dinner, in front of my family. "Someone call an ambulance," my mother cried, rushing to Jessica's side. "No need," I said calmly, pulling out my phone to show the video I'd been secretly recording under the table. "I have everything on camera, including the moment Claire put something in my drink." The table went silent. All eyes turned to me. "What are you talking about?" Claire stammered, her perfect socialite composure cracking. "Derek, baby, Jessica must have had an allergic reaction." "Stop," I said, my voice steady. "I switched our glasses when no one was looking. Jessica drank what you prepared for me." My brother stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. "You're insane." "Kyle," I interrupted, "I have the texts. I have the video of you two in my house, and now I have this." I gestured to Jessica, who was being attended to by Dr. Wilson. "So sit down." He sat. I looked at Claire, the woman I'd planned to spend my life with, the woman now staring at me with a mixture of shock and hatred. "What was it supposed to do to me?" I asked quietly. "It's just a sedative," she whispered. "I thought it would calm you down. You've been acting paranoid lately." "A sedative," I repeated. "At my engagement dinner, with the doctor present, and my brother helping. That's quite a coincidence." Dr. Wilson avoided my eyes, focusing intently on Jessica's pulse. Jessica groaned, her eyelids fluttering. "Why does my head feel like it's exploding?" she slurred, trying to lift her head. "Claire, what's happening to me?" "Someone should probably tell the paramedics what she ingested," I suggested, looking pointedly at Claire. "Since you're the only one who knows exactly what it was." The distant wail of sirens filled the silence. Claire's father, Richard, finally spoke, his voice cold. "I think you should leave, Derek." I nodded, standing slowly. "I agree." But first, I turned to my parents, who sat frozen in confusion and horror. "Mom, Dad, I'm sorry you had to see this. Kyle and Claire have been having an affair for months. Tonight was, well, I'm not sure what tonight was supposed to be, but it wasn't good." My father's face hardened as he looked at Kyle. My mother began to cry silently. "You can't prove anything," Claire hissed, but her voice shook. I smiled for the first time that evening. "Actually, I can. And I will. But right now, your cousin needs medical attention because of what you did." As I walked toward the door, I heard Jessica beginning to stir, moaning incoherently. The EMTs were rushing up the driveway. Claire was frantically whispering to Kyle. Her parents were arguing in harsh, clipped tones. My carefully planned life had just imploded, but strangely I felt lighter than I had in months. The weight of suspicion, of second-guessing myself, of forcing smiles while feeling something was wrong, it was all gone. In the chaos behind me, I heard my name called. It was my sister Emma, running after me, her face streaked with tears. "Derek, wait. I didn't know it was this bad," she said breathlessly. "I knew something was wrong, but I never thought they'd—" I believed her. Emma had always been honest, even when the truth hurt. "It's okay," I said, hugging her tightly. "But there's more to this story than what just happened. And I'm going to make sure that next time Claire and Kyle won't just be exposed." I glanced back at the house where the woman I'd loved and the brother I'd trusted were watching me through the window. They'll be ruined. I'd suspected something was wrong for months, but I never expected this. The night began normally enough. Claire spent hours getting ready, her focus on every detail. The perfect dress, jewelry that complemented without overshadowing. "The Prescotts have expectations," she'd explained when I questioned the fuss for what was supposed to be an intimate family dinner. We arrived at the mansion at 7 sharp. The Prescotts' butler, yes, an actual butler, took our coats while Claire's father surveyed me with his usual mix of faint disapproval and tolerance. "Anderson," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "How's that Richardson project coming along?" "Breaking ground next month," I replied. Richard only ever asked about my biggest clients, the ones with names he recognized from his country club. My parents arrived next, my mother hugging Claire too enthusiastically, my father nodding curtly at Richard. The Prescott's chandelier probably cost more than my parents' entire home, a fact Victoria never let us forget through her subtle commentary. "We've set up in the formal dining room," she announced. "It's so much cozier than the grand hall for family gatherings." The cozy, formal dining room seated 20 at a table that gleamed like black glass. Crystal stemware caught the light and threw rainbows across the walls. Uncle Robert and Aunt Martha were already seated, deep in conversation that stopped abruptly when we entered. "Derek, darling," Aunt Martha said, rising to kiss the air near my cheek. "I was just telling Robert how different you look tonight. More alert than at the last dinner. Last month's dinner. The one where I'd felt strangely dizzy after only 1 glass of wine." The night pieces started falling into place. Kyle arrived 20 minutes late, strolling in with the effortless confidence of someone borrowing status. He shook Robert's hand, kissed Martha's cheek, and clapped me on the shoulder. "Sorry I'm late," he said, though his smile suggested otherwise. Client meeting ran long. A lie. Kyle hadn't had a client meeting in 6 months. Jessica and Dr. Wilson arrived together, another oddity I'd filed away. Jessica, Claire's favorite cousin, the brilliant financial analyst who shared her insatiable ambition, and Wilson, the family's personal physician, who somehow attended every Prescott gathering. Dinner progressed through calculated small talk. Victoria discussed her charity gala. Richard interrogated Kyle about fictional job prospects. My mother tried too hard to fit in. My father said almost nothing. I watched Claire and Kyle carefully, the careful distance they maintained, the eyes that never quite met but always seemed aware of each other's location. Professional actors couldn't have performed better. It was during the third course, poached salmon with dill, that I saw the first real exchange. Claire dropped her napkin. Kyle reached for it at the same moment. Their fingers brushed beneath the table. Not accidental, deliberate. "More wine, Derek?" Claire asked, standing abruptly. There was something tense in her voice, something anxious in Kyle's eyes as he stood to help her. "I'll help," he offered too quickly. I watched in the ornate mirror behind Richard's head as they huddled by the drinks cart. Claire's back to the table, Kyle's body shielding her hands, the slight movement of her wrist, the quick transfer of a small vial. When they returned, Kyle placed my glass before me with exaggerated care. "Special reserve," he said. "Claire thought you'd appreciate it." I glanced at Dr. Wilson, noting how his eyes moved between me and the glass. He checked his watch. "This time of year always makes me reflective," Claire said, her voice artificially bright. "In just 3 weeks we'll be married." "Speaking of the wedding," Victoria interjected, "I've taken the liberty of revising the prenuptial agreement. Nothing major, just some details about the trust." The trust. The $4 million Claire would inherit only after marriage. Money that would become shared assets after 6 months, exactly 5 weeks from tonight. "We can sign the updated version tonight," Richard added casually. "I have the papers in my study." "Tonight?" I echoed, watching Kyle's left hand tremble slightly on the table. "No time like the present," Claire smiled, her eyes flicking to my still untouched glass. "Unless you have concerns?" That's when Jessica turned to whisper something to Aunt Martha, the perfect moment of distraction. I switched our glasses with a movement so natural no one noticed. Now I watched Claire's expression as Jessica drained half my glass in one elegant swallow. The forced smile, the flash of satisfaction quickly replaced by horror as she realized her mistake. She'd been watching the wrong glass. 45 minutes of strained conversation followed. Jessica became increasingly disoriented, her words slurring. Claire grew paler, Kyle more agitated. Dr. Wilson kept checking his watch. I knew the exact moment Jessica would collapse. I'd timed it carefully from my own experience last month when I'd felt strangely disconnected after one drink. That night, Claire had been solicitous, suggesting I lie down in one of the guest bedrooms while she and Kyle discussed wedding details. The wedding I now knew would never happen. The life I'd planned destroyed by the two people I trusted most. When Jessica finally slumped forward, chaos erupted exactly as I'd anticipated. Claire's desperate lies. Kyle's panic. The damning evidence captured on my phone. As I left the mansion with my parents and Emma in shocked silence behind me, I knew this was only the beginning. I hadn't just exposed their attempt to drug me, I'd uncovered something far more sinister. The prenup revisions. Dr. Wilson's presence. The calculated timing. They hadn't just betrayed me. They'd planned to destroy me. "You need a lawyer," my father said as we sat in his study the next morning. It was the most words he'd strung together since we'd left the Prescott's mansion. Outside, fall rain battered the windows of my parents' modest suburban home, worlds away from the mansion where my life had imploded 12 hours earlier. My mother bustled in with coffee, hands still shaking. Emma sat cross-legged on the floor like she had as a child, her face drawn. "I have everything on video," I said, scrolling through my phone to show him. Claire adding something to my drink, Kyle's involvement, their reaction when Jessica collapsed. My father watched the footage in silence, his jaw tightening. He'd never been demonstrative, but I could read the fury in the pulse throbbing at his temple. This isn't the first time, is it? He asked finally. I shook my head. Last month at their dinner party, one drink and the room started spinning. Claire suggested I lie down in a guest room. I paused. When I woke up groggy 2 hours later, she and Kyle were having an intense discussion about wedding details behind closed doors. My mother gasped. Emma's head snapped up. You suspected then? Emma asked. No, I admitted. Not until 3 weeks ago. That was the night I'd come home early from a site visit in Providence. I'd heard Claire's laughter floating down the hallway of our condo, followed by Kyle's voice. I had found Claire's diamond earring in the guest room sheets the next morning, the same sheets I'd changed myself just days before. I started monitoring them after that, I continued. Hidden cameras in our condo, recovering deleted texts from Kyle's phone when he left it charging in my office. My father nodded slowly. You always notice details others miss, even as a child. Why didn't you confront them immediately? My mother asked, her voice small. Because it wasn't just the affair, I explained. There was something calculated about it. The timing felt wrong. The prenup revisions, my father said, not a question. I nodded. Claire inherits $4 million when we marry. After 6 months, it becomes joint property in our state. The revised agreement would have given her sole control regardless of our marriage status. And you think they plan to? Emma couldn't finish the question. I think they plan to drug me, get me to sign the revised agreement in an impaired state. Then, I let the implication hang in the air. My mother made a small, wounded sound. That physician, Dr. Wilson, my father said. He was watching you, checking his watch. Medical verification if anything went wrong, I agreed. A respected doctor to confirm any medical issues were natural. The room fell silent as the implications settled over us. I hadn't just caught my fiancé and brother having an affair. I'd potentially uncovered something much darker. What are you going to do? Emma finally asked. Justice, I said simply. But not revenge. There's a difference. My father's eyes met mine across the room, a rare moment of perfect understanding between us. The brother part is what I can't forgive, he said quietly. Claire, he shrugged. People fall out of love, but Kyle? The rawness in his voice struck me. My father had always been stoic, practical. Now I saw the depth of his hurt. Kyle made his choice, I said, but I won't destroy him. That would hurt us more than him. Always the protector, Emma said with a sad smile. Even now. I thought about Jessica, caught in the crossfire of Claire's scheme. About my parents, who would have to face uncomfortable questions from friends and neighbors. About the ripple effects of a public scandal. I've gathered everything, I said, pulling out a flash drive. The videos, texts, evidence of the drugging attempts. There are copies in my safe deposit box. And the police? My mother asked. That depends on Claire and Kyle, I replied. And what happens next? The doorbell rang, interrupting us. Emma went to answer it, returning with a grim expression. It's Richard Prescott, she said. He wants to talk. Richard Prescott looked smaller somehow, standing in my parents' modest living room. Without his mansion backdrop, his tailored suit seemed excessive, his perfectly styled silver hair out of place. Derek, he said, nodding stiffly. Mrs. Anderson. Mr. Anderson. He ignored Emma completely. My father remained seated, breaking protocol. You have 5 minutes, Prescott. Richard didn't sit. I'd prefer to speak with Derek alone. That's not happening, my mother said, her voice surprisingly firm. Richard sighed. Very well, I'm here about Jessica. How is she? I asked. Stable, sedated. The doctors confirmed diazepam in her system, a significant dose. His eyes flicked to mine. Not her first experience with sedatives, apparently. Meaning? Meaning Jessica has a history with anxiety medication. The doctors assumed it was self-administered, an accident. I understood immediately. You're covering it up. Richard's jaw tightened. I'm protecting my family, all of my family. Including Claire? I asked. After what she did? Claire is troubled, Richard admitted, looking away. There's been incidents before, nothing like this, but you knew, my father interjected, rising slowly. You knew your daughter was unstable and you pushed her toward marriage anyway. It wasn't like that, Richard protested. Claire genuinely cared for Derek. The money, the status. The timing of the prenup revision, I supplied. Richard had the decency to look uncomfortable. That was Victoria's idea, and Dr. Wilson was only there as a precaution. Stop, I said, my voice cold. You're making it worse. He fell silent, studying me. What do you want, Derek? The truth, from everyone involved. Richard laughed humorlessly. The truth destroys everyone. The truth means scandal, prison, ruined careers. Maybe that's what Claire deserves, Emma interjected. Richard turned to her, eyes flashing. And what about your brother? Kyle is just as involved. Do you want to see him in prison too? The room fell silent. He had a point, and he knew it. I have a proposal, Richard continued, one that protects everyone. I'm listening, I said carefully. Claire needs help. Real help. I've arranged for her admission to a private facility in Switzerland, immediately and indefinitely. And Kyle? My father asked. He leaves. Tonight. I've secured a position for him with a firm in Dubai. 5-year minimum contract. He won't contact you or return to Boston. And we're supposed to trust that's sufficient? My mother asked. Richard pulled an envelope from his jacket. This contains a signed confession from both of them. The entire plan, including the drugging attempt and their relationship, it's witnessed and notarized. If either of them breaks the agreement, you release it. I took the envelope, feeling the weight of it. And Jessica? She knows nothing about the drugs. She believes she had an allergic reaction. That's how it stays. That wasn't my doing, I reminded him. No, Richard acknowledged. But it would devastate her to learn her cousin tried to harm her, even inadvertently. My father stepped closer. Why should we agree to any of this? Richard looked at me directly. Because it gives Derek what he actually wants. Justice without destruction. Consequences that protect rather than damage. He was right. Criminal charges would mean a public trial. My brother in prison. Claire's face on every news station. My parents dealing with reporters on their lawn. Emma facing whispers at work. One more condition, I said finally. The full trust goes to Jessica. Richard's eyes widened. What? The $4 million Claire was due to inherit. It goes to Jessica instead. That's her birthright, Richard sputtered. It's blood money, I corrected him. And it's the price of my silence. Richard studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I'll make the arrangements. I want proof of Claire's admission and Kyle's departure, and confirmation of the trust transfer to Jessica. You'll have it all within 24 hours. As Richard turned to leave, he paused at the door. For what it's worth, I am sorry, Derek. You were always too good for her. After he left, my family sat in stunned silence. Finally, Emma spoke. Do you think they'll honor it? They don't have a choice, I answered. Richard would do anything to avoid scandal, and now we have leverage. Dr. Wilson called an hour later. He wanted to meet. He had something to tell me about what Claire and Kyle had really planned. When my father insisted on accompanying me, I didn't argue. Some burdens shouldn't be carried alone. Part 5. Dr. Wilson looked haggard when we met him at a small cafe 2 miles from my parents' home. His normally immaculate appearance was disheveled, rumpled shirt, thinning hair uncombed. Thank you for coming, he said, eyes darting between my father and me. I need to clear my conscience. About your role in drugging me? I asked. He winced. I didn't know the full extent, not at first. My father's expression remained stony. Explain. Wilson sighed, pushing a folder across the table. Claire first approached me, claiming you were having anxiety attacks, Derek. She asked for diazepam, a mild sedative. Said you refused to seek help. A common manipulation tactic, I noted. I believed her, he admitted. But then she kept asking for stronger doses. When I hesitated, she mentioned the Prescott Family Foundation's annual donation to my research. Blackmail, my father said. Wilson nodded. I supplied the medication, small doses at first. But what happened at the dinner? He shook his head. That wasn't what I provided. That was something much stronger. Victoria? I guessed. Yes. She has connections to pharmaceutical companies through her charity work, access to things that would be difficult to trace. The final piece clicked into place. And the prenup revision? I overheard Richard and Victoria discussing it. Their plan was for you to sign while impaired, then for Claire to claim she was concerned about your mental state. My role was to confirm signs of instability. My father leaned forward. And after the signing? Wilson couldn't meet our eyes. A convenient accident was mentioned. Nothing I was directly involved in, but you knew, I said. Yes, he whispered. When Jessica collapsed instead of you, I realized how far they were willing to go. Why tell us this now? My father asked. Because Richard's solution protects Claire and Kyle, but leaves Victoria untouched, and she was the architect of all of this. I examined the folder he'd provided. Medical records, prescriptions, text messages with Victoria, damning evidence that completed the puzzle. What do you want? I asked. Immunity. I'll testify about Victoria's involvement if it comes to that. I nodded slowly. I'll consider it, but there's something you need to do first. 2 days later, Jessica came to see me. Her face was pale but determined. Dr. Wilson told me everything, she said without preamble. About the drugs, about Claire and Kyle, about what was meant for you. I'm sorry, I said. I never meant for you to be hurt. I know, she replied, but I needed the truth. My whole life, Claire has manipulated me, used me. This time she nearly killed me. She met my eyes. I want to help take Victoria down. It's going to get ugly, I warned. It already is, she said simply. With Jessica's support, I confronted Richard again. This time with new demands. Victoria would join Claire in Switzerland. The family would fund a treatment center for victims of pharmaceutical abuse in my grandfather's name. And Uncle Robert, who Jessica revealed had seen Claire and Kyle together months ago but said nothing, would resign from his position on the hospital board. Richard balked initially, but when faced with the mounting evidence and potential scandal, he capitulated. The Prescott empire would survive, diminished but intact. My family would heal without the public spectacle of trials and headlines. A month later, Kyle called from Dubai. I'm sorry, he said, his voice thin across the international connection. I know that means nothing, but I am. You're right, I replied. It means nothing. Can you ever forgive me? He asked. Forgiveness isn't something you earn with a phone call, I said. It's something you build through actions, through change. Maybe someday, but not today. After hanging up, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset. My mother had asked a similar question yesterday over dinner at their house, our new Sunday tradition. Will you ever be able to trust again? She'd asked softly. I thought about Jessica, who had joined us for dinner, bringing a bottle of wine that she poured herself. About Emma, who checked in daily not from obligation but love. About my father, who had stood beside me through every difficult conversation. I already do, I answered, just more wisely. That's the thing about betrayal. It teaches you to look more closely at everything. To notice not just the warning signs, but also the quiet loyalties that were there all along. Sometimes the family you build after betrayal is stronger than what came before. Not because the pain disappears, but because you finally see clearly what matters most. Do I wish I'd noticed the signs earlier? Sometimes. But then I might never have learned how strong I really am. How to trust my instincts when they whisper that something isn't right. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where something feels wrong, where the smiles don't reach the eyes or the explanations don't quite add up, remember this. Noticing details isn't paranoia, it's protection. And switching glasses might just save your life.